This is the A to Z podcast. I'm Zach Jackson. He's Andre Knott. A to Z podcast.com. Facebook.com/A to Z podcast is where you can find us. Shout outs, as always, to Scene, to the Honeymoon Grill, to American Fireworks for helping to make this thing happen, to you guys for helping it grow, and motivating us to get off our fat asses and come talk about sports and life. Andre, good evening.
Good afternoon. How are you?
I'm good. I'm a little confused. Little confused on the afternoon evening part. It does, at my age, I don't adjust to much well, and I especially, now that it's dark at 5:15, 5:25, whatever time, it does take me a little bit to adapt. Now, often I'm buried in the laptop, and it really doesn't matter, but it is kind of weird because at any given time that I can hop on the couch and get a nap, I do.
Oh, yeah.
It's just
right.
It's training my body to whether this is supposed to be a 20-minute nap or just go to sleep for the night.
Yeah, it's hard to nap when it's already dark outside, right? It's easy to get a 20-minute nap or an hour nap when it's daytime and get up and make yourself do something. Once it's dark out, and especially 20 years ago, it was way easy for me to go to bed at 7 and not get back up. Once it's dark out, I can't get away with that nowadays. But it is that time. I think everybody, and I will say, as I've gotten older, it's nice to see the changes of the leaves and all that other crap. But the time change when it starts getting dark at 5:30. That scares me because that makes me tired. And I can fall asleep at the drop of a dime nowadays if my kids aren't around.
Well, yeah, I mean, I'm sure it's especially hard on you having two young kids because you can find a way, and you don't ever have a normal schedule anyway.
Right, yeah.
We kids that you're trying to get on a normal schedule so they're less terrors, all of a sudden lose that hour, right, and everything changes.
Oh, and they've been complete terrors, getting up at like 5:45, 6 o'clock last few days. How about this? And I don't talk about parenting very often, and I won't, but I went to my daughter's first parent-teacher conference for kindergarten yesterday, and she's doing great at everything. That's awesome. And at the end, I was just like, "So is she all right socially?" And the teacher's like, "Yeah, she's good, but sometimes she just wants to run the class and tells on everybody." And I just blurted out without thinking. And I looked at my wife and I go, "I told her snitches get stitches," and the teacher's face was like, "Oh my God!" So if she ever comes in here with stitches, I know what happened. And I'm like, "No, that's going to happen." I go, my wife's always told me not to tell our kids that, but I always tell them, unless somebody's hurt you, you don't tell it. It ain't none of your business what's going on. And the teacher's eyes were just like, and it was like, and my wife looked at me, the teacher looked at me, and I could just tell. It was like they wanted to look at me and be like, "Hey, this isn't a locker room. This is 5-year-olds, asshole." And I'm like, "No, my kids are not here to snitch. That's not their job."
Well, it's a valid question because you knots are shy by nature, so I understand why you'd have to ask.
Yeah. Well, you know what? The best traits, and you all know this, and I know parents out there will hear this and agree, the best traits that help you get to wherever you get in life, your kids have them, and it makes you so aware of them, and it's not ashamed. I don't want to use the word ashamed. But like AJ is me. We were in the store. He's trying to whisper to me, and I swear 5 rows over, you can hear him. I hear everything he's saying. Like, he tried to whisper me the other night, and Isabella, 2 rooms over, is like, "AJ, I can hear everything you're saying in your boys talk." And I'm like, "Yeah, dude, you got to keep it down." And I say that to him at least 5 times a day. I'm like, "Dude, everybody can hear you. Settle down." And it ain't his fault. He's me. I've been loud my whole life. I got from my first day of kindergarten trying to whisper. So I get it. I just feel bad that I've given him this trait that is undeniably a not tradition of a man. To talk a lot, to be loud, and not give a shit if you're pissing other people off. And you're going to say what you need to say.
He's going to be short, he's going to be fast, and he's going to be loud.
There's no doubt. No doubt about all 3 of them. So the other day we went to the park. The park that I send you and another friend of ours video of me running the football field. That's become his thing. He likes going there with me, and like when I run, he plays on the gym set there or whatever else. So we go on Sunday, and there was a coach of a local college team's wife and their young kids that they'll remain nameless, and they have a son. They've got a son with the same name as AJ, so they're all playing on the playground, and he's like, "I'm AJ, and I'm AJ," and they're this week or next week. And AJ's like, "Well, I'm older than you, and I'm faster than you." And I cringe. I'm like, "Dude, stop telling people you're fast." So he ends up talking the other AJ into a race, and he blows his windows off. Well, AJ had a big brother, and I'm glad AJ had a big brother, because AJ's big brother says, "Well, why don't you race me?" And I go, "Yeah, race him." The kid was probably about 8 or 9. Oh, he's way bigger than AJ. And AJ held with him for a minute, then the kid blew him out, and I loved it. And I was like, yeah, keep racing him. Keep blowing him out. Keep beating him. And AJ won't quit, though. He's like, no, let's race again. I'm like, dude, he beat you by 10 yards. Give it up. He's faster than you. And AJ wouldn't take a no for an answer. They ran up hills. It was the best workout ever because I got AJ worn out and took him home, and he went right to sleep. But I got to be careful with him because he goes to the park telling everybody, I'm fast. I'm like, no, you're not. And he kind of is, but he finally got it broken to him that somebody could beat him. Even though the kid was like 4 years older than him. He needed that taste of reality.
How is the old workout plan going?
The changing of the weather is it's okay. I'm doing all right. I'm not as I think I ran 3 times this week, which is better. It's between Halloween food, between my non-schedule schedule, because basically my wife, and she has this right, takes advantage of me not working when I'm not working and schedules a bunch of stuff for me. And I'll admit, I'm lazy and I can get caught up in other things real quick. Like, you can quickly get I think Christmas sale came out last week. So I bought 2 cases of that. I put one in the fridge, and I put half in the fridge and half of my fridge in the basement. Then I had another case just left out in our garage, just because we got random beers from everybody else that comes by every time people come over out in my garage to keep cold. So my dad comes over. He goes, only my dad found it. He walks right in and he goes, I appreciate you hiding that Christmas ale outside, but I'm taking 2 or 3 with me when I leave. And Jen looks at me and is like, you bought more than 1 case? I was just like, my dad goes, my bad. I'll take that whole case. That was for me. I'm like, thanks a lot, Dad. Thanks a lot.
You got to be careful with that stuff, man. I have seen that stuff in some pretty big people.
Yeah. Me being one of them.
Some pretty accomplished drinkers have turned into
yeah.
Yeah. See, I'm not like
one of my worst nights. Yeah.
Yeah. See, here's where I am with that. Like, I kind of enjoy the taste, and certainly, it's only out for a certain time, at least in theory, right? And it gets cold and whatever. But I'm not like a cinnamon fan to start with. Like, I just not. So obviously, I don't. If you look at me, there aren't many things that drinking wise, I will totally walk away from. But just given the choice, like, hey, if we're gonna have one and everybody have a Christmas ale and it's December, sure, count me in. But I'm not going to choose that. And certainly at this stage where I like to think I'm maybe not smarter than the average bear, but a lot smarter than I used to be. If I'm going to have 2 or 3, I'm certainly not going to choose that because I know it's going to change the direction of things a lot more than 2 or 3 of whatever I usually drink. Yes.
Here's how I would break down you as a drinker, though. You would rather drink 12 Bud Lights than 3 Christmas ales.
Yes, I'm definitely a volume drinker, not a.
Yes, would.
Yes,
you're like a volume shooter. That's why you like that thing you dress up as Halloween, because you can drink 18 cases of those and barely be drunk. I get it. I know if I drink 4.5 Christmas ales, I ain't talking to nobody. My language ain't gonna make sense, and I'm gonna sleep like a baby.
Yes.
But I did. There are times. I mean, look, I got Miller Lite in my freezer as well. I like having Miller Lite around just for the volume. But sometimes, after you have kids and you've gone through everything else, and it's 10:30 and you have a long-ass day, 2 Christmas ales could set me just right, and I'm good for the rest of the night. I don't have to crush through them. But you're right. And like I said, one of the worst nights of drinking my whole life came because of Christmas ale, and it made it for one of the worst Thanksgivings ever, too. So I know I have to be very careful.
Well, we've all been there, and we learn from that stuff, right? Gosh, especially holidays. You have one bad one, and you should remember it, or at least you're supposed to. See, here's where I am
around
with
your
that.
Whole family.
Yeah, like I'm kind of off the beer altogether. I know I'm fat and old, and it makes me feel fatter and more bloated and more sluggish. So we're gonna have one like tonight when I get done writing. I'm supposed to meet a friend. We're supposed to talk some business and catch up. Like, I'll have 2 beers and the whole thing will be in 40 minutes. But you're right. Like we're going out on a Saturday and we're going to be out for hours or go a couple places. I'm just not. And then I have with my White Claw crew, and as you guys know, if you've been listening, hashtag Claws the Law is one of my only clever things I've ever written, and I stand by it. So I have one friend. And he writes
for a living.
I have one friend that insists on the mango, and I mean multiple times. he has told me, if you ever find where they have the mango 6-packs or even the 12-packs, just buy them and I'll store them because that's what I like to drink. And then I have another friend. We usually buy the variety packs where you get the four different flavors.
Right.
And every time I ask him, I'm like, you have a flavor choice? And he says, I don't drink them for the flavor. And I say, amen, Trev. Amen, brother.
He's right, though.
No,
I got
he's
a claw
right.
still in my fridge.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not much for the grapefruit or the mango. I don't like mango anything. It's just it's kind of a thing that I have. So the black cherry and the lime though on the claw, that's what I'm on.
So what we've learned on this podcast so far is you don't like mango and you don't like cinnamon, but you're still a chubby motherfucker. Good to know. Good to know.
And I'm the only white person who doesn't like Panera either.
Oh, Panera.
So I said, so that was 2 podcasts ago. If you guys go back and listen, Andre gets off the rails. Then he kind of subtly backtracked and made me laugh last time. So on Tuesday, I met my boss at Panera, and as I was walking out fumbling with my phone, I turned around and took a picture of Andre and put it on IG and said, we're all here. And then later that night, I went over to Pittsburgh for the YSU Pitt basketball game. And, parking on a campus at this time of night, a busy campus like that isn't easy. People are coming in and out, and it was election day, and it was kind of crazy. So, and it's only the second or third time I've even been over to campus. So we parked, and we were looking to go down and meet my brother somewhere. And as we came around the corner, there right in front of me was a Panera, and I just start busting out laughing. And my friend who was with me is like, "What is so funny?" And I'm like, "I don't even have time to explain it. I really don't."
Yeah. Well, the funny thing is the next day after I went off about that, I had to actually take my kids and drop them off at Panera, and it's where my kids love to eat. It's hilarious. So I'm there, and I'm telling you, I still stand by what I say. I go there. I go there enough that I can state what I stated, and I stand by it. Very rarely is there more than one brother than me when I walk in that place, and I love it. They got good food. So brothers and sisters, that's listening out there, man, try Panera out. They hiding it from you. They got some good food. Well, bread is legit. Soup is legit. Sandwiches are legit.
Not to poke holes in your theory or question the validity of your facts, but there's very rarely more than one brother in Wadsworth, period. So when you go to that Panera, I'm not really into those stats.
Well, that was one of the reasons I almost didn't move there. But thank God I have a very good group of people that live around me. I am the chocolate chip. There's no doubt about that. I'll leave it at that. So those Browns, they got a game this week, I hear.
No, I actually have... The drinking talk actually reminded me of one story I haven't told before we move on to football. So how about this? So
all right, what you got?
This goes back to what I did a few Fridays ago, and I haven't talked about it on the podcast. So, many years ago. Well, I was in college many years ago, decades ago, right? And I had a professor with whom I've stayed in touch, and she was always good to me. And in the time past, I've gone back and talked to her classes, or she's consulted me on things, and just been great. So, 2014, I want to say, which is a long time ago by any standards, and certainly by mine. It's this middle of the summer, and she hits me up, and she's like, "I'm working on this documentary on the Goodyear Blimp, and I know it has a rich history in sports, and I know it's prominently featured on Monday Night Football." She says, somebody wrote this, could you, spruce it up? Basically just asking me to edit something that someone wrote for the thing. And I said, sure, I'd love to do that, help you out. To say I owed her one favor would be an understatement. So then she comes back and she says.
How old is she?
Oh, she just retired, so she's old. Probably older than my own mom who listens to this podcast. Okay. Hi, Mom. You're not old. You're the best.
Hey, Miss Jackson. How you doing, Miss Jackson?
So... she comes back then and she says, well, hey, next, let's just say Tuesday, if you could make it out, we would like to use you in the documentary to kind of just talk about what you wrote on the thing. And then I end up going out to Wingfoot Lake into the secured hangar and got to didn't get to go up in the blimp, but got to sit in the blimp in the cockpit and interview one of the pilots. And I was, like I said, it was glad to help. And it was a really cool experience to see up close just how big it is and go through the whole operation and whatever else. Right. So I do this, and the whole thing is for 2 hours or whatever. And I never give it a thought because I wasn't involved before and I wasn't involved after. And I just was, like I said, doing a favor for someone who had done more than one for me. So great. So we fast forward to about a year ago, and I'm in a bar. I know that's shocking, and I'm winding my way through. And I see this guy who looks familiar, but I don't know him. And he turns around to me, and he's a little overserved. I think he might have been on Christmas sales this day. This is the look on this man's face. And he says,
Good for him.
He says, "Are you Zach Jackson?" And I said, "Yes, I am." And he introduced him. I said, "Yeah, we've met before. You look familiar, blah, blah, blah." And he goes, "I saw you on TV the other day." And I said, "Really? I don't think I've been on in a while. Like, I'm kind of a face for radio." He goes, No, you were on PBS. And I start laughing, and I go, "No, Larry, I can assure you that I wasn't on PBS." He goes, "No, you were." I said, "No, Larry, I think you might have me confused with another Zach because I've never been on PBS." He goes, "Yeah, you were on the Blimp show." And I'm like, oh, shit. I forgot that I did that, and good for them. Like, it made it to air. And so he's like, yeah, starts talking about how much he enjoyed it. And I'm like, well, that's cool. Like, the Blimp is a huge part of Akron's history. I'd like to like that. Like, maybe I'll have to send an email and find out. I'd like to see that. So, again, this was a year ago, and I just have a chuckle about it, right? So about 2 or 3 weeks ago, I get an email from the same professor, and she says, "Our turn, everybody who worked on the documentary's turn to go up in the Blimp is Friday at noon. Can you go?" And I'm like, oh, wow. Like, I would love to do that. That's awesome. So I made sure that I could go. We ended up getting really fortunate weather-wise because I found out a lot about the Blimp and how it works. And so I think 7 or 8 of us were allowed to go up at once. You have to go in. You have to sign waivers. They weigh you because there's a certain limit there. You have to watch a safety video. You go back through the clearance. And so having been in there, I wasn't intimidated at all, but I was just really excited. And given that it was a cool, only partly cloudy day, and fall was really just starting to hit full bloom, it was an awesome day to be up there. You really only go about 1,000 feet in most cases. And we flew over East Akron, over downtown Akron, out over Kent State, kind of over and through rural Portage County. We're only up an hour, but it was an awesome experience. I totally nerded out. I got some great pictures, some of which I've put on Instagram and Facebook if you guys want to check those out. And it was just a really cool thing because, I'm an old grumpy guy who doesn't have many new experiences. And I hope I wasn't squealing like a little girl, but I was like, this is really cool. And from the very start, Dre, I don't even think I told you this. I'm sitting in there gabbing. I know that's another thing that shocks you. And I look to my left, and we're like 100 feet in the air. Like, you don't even feel it take off.
Oh, that's crazy.
Yeah, so I've been waiting to tell that story. It was a cool experience because a lot of people have reached out to me like, how did you get to do that? We've always wanted to do that, and I always have too. So it was a really cool thing. So I guess the moral of the story is if you do a good deed once in your life, 5 years later, there is some payback, even if you're a terrible person like I am. Fair?
In my best Doug Deacon, yes, fair. In my best Doug Deacon voice as you're telling that story, it's a good story, all I can think of, and this will be the title of this podcast, where a fucking blimp talks about being inside a blimp. Coming up next.
I walked by the other day just talking to someone and didn't even see Deke there, and he looks right up and goes, "Hi, bitch boy," just like that's my common name. I said, "Hi, Deke."
Hey, bitch boy. The things we text each other with my wife's event coming up, I want him to come bartend or come out because he helps out Special Olympics. For everything we talk about, Deke's got a huge heart, helps out the community tremendously. He just always has. And Jen's always like, get Deke to come. I know it's the day before game. And I'm like, babe. And Deke, so some text messages, as you know, I just give my wife would be like, hey, have you talked to Bernie Kosar? And I put Bernie's number in. I'll hand her my phone and be like, text him what you want to say to him. Or with you, because you guys have each other's number, I'll just put you guys on a group text and say what you got to say. That's where I get with putting this event together. I'm like, you talk to him, you tell him. So Deke had sent me something a little edgy on Halloween, and I hand my phone to Jen, and she goes, "This is what you two assholes text about?" And I'm like, well, yeah, this is what we text about. I go, but if you see, it's from Deke. It's not from me. I just take them and read them, honey. That guy is tremendous in so many ways. He may show up, but he's got people coming in town. And, yes, you as Bitch Boy is his name. He makes fun of me for the show I'm getting ready to do tonight. One other thing I want to bring up before we talk about football. I don't know whether you voted or didn't vote. It's completely up to you. And I'm not here to judge you and make you feel one way about it. And the beauty of social media is being able to converse and have conversations and find out all the information that we never could find out. But gosh, if another election goes by and I have to see every picture of somebody with a sticker, I think I texted you the other day, and I was like, I voted. And I didn't put a picture up on Instagram or on social media. I'm still as American as everybody else. And maybe that's just a part of the culture that we're in now, Zach. But that frustrated the hell out of me because it's like, okay, it's your right to vote. And I'm glad as many people felt the need to show everyone. But it just got old real quick on Tuesday. But I guess that's where we are in life. And as someone told me about Instagram the other day, and this won't be about licking oneself, even though I thought that was a good rule to teach youngsters about Instagram. As someone else that I'll say I look up to and I have mature conversations with, and I can say it's my older sister. We were just talking at one time, and she was just like, because she's got kids that are now college age and out of college, and she said this best. She was like, nobody posts worse. Like, you only get a glimpse into people's like best part of their life. You know, you can only get the good slice of pie to someone's social media, right? Now, maybe Facebook's different where you guys all bitch and moan about each other and religion and everything else. I don't go there. But it's sat in my head for a while. We talked about this when I was down in Houston for the Indians playoff game because it's relevant. It's like most people don't post anything unless it's the best part of their day. And I'm even going through this with my kids. It's like, and no offense to this, I get it. I'm no bigger than anyone else. But it's been weird a couple times where people have come up to my wife and kids in Target, and they're like, hey, you're Andre Knott's kids. We see pictures on Instagram. And that kind of freaks my wife out a little bit. And
well,
I don't blame her.
It would freak me out, too.
It's not like, and it's weird. Like, I don't post my kids to say, hey, look, I got kids. You do it out of a joyful moment. You do it because, you know, it's something fun. Like, I put up a picture of my kids yesterday because AJ and I went to GV Artwork, and he wanted a hot dog. He got the hot dog and ketchup shirt. Surprise, surprise. And because Greg and the GV Artworks does a lot of work with Direct to Connect. The shirts that everyone will wear, all the bartenders will wear, or you can buy. They're Cleveland I Love shirts, but they're in Direct to Connect colors.
Might wear a Manchester football T-shirt instead.
Yeah, he might not. Zach has told Jen, my wife, that he may go shirtless behind the bar on Saturday. Be aware of that, everyone. You might want to just come see that. But we're at GV Artworks, and my kids have kind of grown. They know Greg. We know their families. We've known them all for a while. And AJ comes right in, takes his coat off, and yanks down a red shirt and goes, Dad, I want this shirt. He goes, Sissy's got it, and I don't have it. Basically, he was pissed off, like, how could Sissy have this shirt, but I want. And he knew exactly what. He went right to the kids section. So I'm doing work with Greg for the benefit, and I'm like, dude, just chill out. We'll get to you. So Greg ended up just giving him this shirt, and I ended up buying him like the hot dog shirts. So the next day, which was yesterday, like AJ comes home with the shirts, and he like the next day wakes up and he goes into both of their rooms. He's like, we're wearing our Big C shirts, Sissy. We're wearing them. And it was hilarious to me that this dude bitched and moaned for like an hour while at the store, wore it the next day, made his sister wear it the next day. So I posted the picture. Because it was just a cool moment for me, and they were fun. And I don't think about, I'm just posting this because my kids, like, it was a fun moment for me is all I'm getting at. And it's weird because I have been more cautious of what I've posted, especially on Instagram, because it's a great point that you only get the smallest glimpse into a person's life when you're on Instagram. And I guess that's okay. I mean, that's how most of us are anyway. I mean, how many times in real life, Zach, when someone says, hey, how's your day going, do you tell them the truth?
Well, it depends on who it is.
Well, I'm saying, well, that's
but
the
yeah,
thing.
No, you're saying the most media. Casual.
Like we say.
Yeah, I get what you're saying.
You go to Starbucks or you go to Panera. You go to Panera and the white girl behind the thing says, hi, sir, how's your day? And you go in your white voice, well, it's going great. Can I get one of those sandwiches with mayonnaise, please?
Extra mayonnaise, please.
Yeah, can I get extra mayonnaise and the whitest bologna that you got?
I get what you're saying. It's like
rye bread.
I always say the biggest lie ever told is nice to meet you because you shake someone's hand, someone introduces you. You don't. It's not nice to meet that person. You couldn't give a shit less. You didn't remember what their name was then, and you certainly ain't going to remember it in 5 minutes. But hey, great to meet you.
True. Well, you're right. And I think social media, I'm trying to, and I'm not telling everybody else to this, I'm trying to do this and being more cautious of that. On Instagram, for the most part for you you see license plates, you see signs, you think you're witty, and you go about it, and you have your little fun. And you'll try. You put up. You're more of a jokester, I guess, is what I would call you, on Instagram than anything else. I'm just more cautious of it. Like, why are you posting something? And how many people really give a shit about that?
Well, yeah. Well, I would say this. The flip side is those who do air out their bad days, their dirty laundry, and all their business on social media, regardless of the format, Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, whatever. Yeah. Like, they're the worst, right? Like,
absolutely.
You're right. You have your Facebook philosophy, and you've never really been on there, right? And I understand that. To me,
right.
It's a great place to post my writing. It is a great place to try out some material, some of my stand-up comedy that's not actually stand-up, right? And, like, I just used 2 of the platforms this week to track down somebody across the country for a story that I needed. So it's very valuable to me in that regard. But, however, like, whenever the subject is broached, like, and my mom, God bless her, you're the best, she's forever telling me, well, so-and-so posted this on Facebook. Well, Mom, if I gave a shit, I'd follow that person on Facebook. Or I'd see it already. I'm not going to go look at it now, right?
Right.
But, the second thing is I'm like, Facebook's for jokes. So those people who do take it too far or do share their business or out themselves as one thing or another, I'm kind of like, oh, don't do that. But then again, I'm not in charge of them. I'm really not. I spoke to a high school journalism class the other day. The kids were great. As you know from doing that with me and independently, the whole thing is about your audience, and if they are engaged and energetic, then actually what you're saying matters.
For sure.
And it's easier to overcome stumbling over yourself or getting long-winded. Not that you would ever be long-winded or any of those things, right? And we just talked about that, like using social media to be light, bright, and positive rather than to share your business, right? Don't put someone on blast on social media. The chances you'll ever benefit from that are like slim and none. And I've been guilty of it. You've been guilty of it. All of those things.
Oh, yeah.
But you learn from it, and then hopefully you don't do it again.
Right. Well, another thing that I found out because of all of this is just like posting stuff about this fundraiser Saturday. And for the most part, the ticket sales have been pretty good. They've been pretty good. But when you're putting on something like this, my wife's worries, as we talked about before we even start recording, my wife just worries. She worries. This is an event with her name all over it, even though her name isn't all over it. And, like, she's all over me, like, 2 days ago. And she's like, well, and she has no idea how Twitter works. Because God bless her, she don't want nothing to do with it. And she's like, well, have you retweeted or redone it or re-put it up? Or have you told people to read? And I'm like, dude, I go, if you follow me, I'm pretty sure you know about the event. And she's like, well, I just want to make sure. And she's like, well, what about Instagram? And I'm like, dude, people know. I go, and everybody isn't. I mean, because it's $45 if you prepay, and it's $55 at the door if you don't. And I'm trying to explain to her, I have friends that I know are coming. They know all about it. They know they're going to come next year, and they ain't going to spend $45 early. They're just going to spend $55 at the door because that's the type of dudes they are.
Right.
Right?
And most of them are going to get their 40s worth of straight drinking. That's for sure.
Absolutely. It's like, think about this. And then we can talk sports. The CFO came to the event last year in complete CFO fashion, did his thing. Probably did he bought his ticket and then still wanted to buy. He didn't want the drinks that were free. That's the type of man CFO is. Think about that. This year, CFO is one of the sponsors of the damn event. I laughed last night when Jen told me that. She's like, "Yeah, your buddy Springer, his dad's company's they're one of the sponsors of the event this year." And I just died laughing. And she's like, "What's so funny?" And I was like, "It's just so Springer. It's just so Springer."
Well, no one will ever question his motives or his heart, just his golf outfits. That's all.
He might wear a white belt on Saturday. It might match the snow that comes down. There's no doubt about that.
Sports question here. Sports question here.
All right.
One of them is a throwback since it's Throwback Thursday, and one of them is relevant to this time. Which of these two things makes you feel older? And I hate to do an old man show, but God damn it, we're 29 minutes and 40 seconds into doing an old man show, so here we are. You're listening to 92.3 The Fan. Anyway, which of these two things makes you feel older? The fact that 25 years ago today, the Browns cut Bernie Kosar, or that Eric Bieniemy
How many years?
25. That's A. A is 25 years ago today. The Browns cut Bernie Kosar. And B is Eric Bieniemy is 49 years old. Which of those two things makes you feel older?
Damn. That's hard. I'm going to tell you why. Eric Bieniemy, and I know you're going to laugh, but it's true. It's one of my favorite running backs growing up.
Sure.
Because of his size. And the size fit with where I was going to be in life, obviously. I'm not going to say I patterned my game off, but I was just a big Eric Bieniemy fan. I remember in Colorado, like he was a beast, man. He was a beast for the kids that are listening. And Eric Bieniemy, and I've even before Hugh Jackson was fired, he's been a name that I've just thought it's time for him to get a head coaching job if you just know what he's done. The Bernie one is what I've got to answer because I'm Northeast Ohio, and Bernie texts me. I get texted, and like this ain't a bragging moment. It's just true. It's where we are in life. Like I'll be doing a show, and Bernie Kosar will text me and tell me and give me pointers or give me stuff. But I shouldn't even say that because I don't want to get him in trouble. And I'm still like a 5-year-old when I look down and I'm like, why is my phone going off? And it's not Zach making fun of me, and it's not Deke making fun of me and sending me pumpkins. Check your phone, by the way. I sent you something that he sent me that my wife saw. I want to get your reaction while we're doing the podcast. But I talk like Bernie, like he just texted me 2 days ago. It was like, hey, I didn't forget about Jen's event. He's like, I got a couple other things, but I'm still trying to make it through and try to come by and see everybody. I'm proud of what you guys are doing. It's Uncle Bern. So the Bern, and I can remember 25 years ago, just in regular life, I can remember what it was like. And just think about all the things that came along with that. He was the last and only quarterback we've known for the Browns that was the man. I'm in a cool spot in life because Matt Underwood went to BW and played, and his roommate was Bernie's brother. So I've gotten stories from like Matt, just like what life was like then when Bernie was LeBron of Cleveland, and Matt and his brother, Bernie's brother, are going to Baldwin Wallace, which is basically right where the Browns practice. You can just imagine what their lives were like, and then look at where Bill Belichick is. Just look at like all the people that are from that era. It's amazing that was 25 years ago. It's funny you bring that up because somebody put up on Twitter and they tweeted it to Bernie. They had like Fox 8's coverage of it with Casey Coleman and John Tellage breaking down, how everything broke down and why Bernie was gone. I'll never forget it. And I'll never forget him throwing passes for the Dallas Cowboys that same year when Troy Aikman got hurt. And so it's, what a story.
Well, let's use this as an example of how it's changed. I mean, Dre, they broke into programming, and it was like what they did. Yeah. They stuck with it like a head of state had died, right? I remember in middle school, like seeing this on one of the only televisions we had in the school. I remember delivering the news to my science teacher and him being white as a ghost. Like, no way did they cut Bernie Kosar. Right. And then it was like ongoing coverage, right? And so then you're right. It was it was the 6 o'clock news and 11 o'clock news and the Plain Dealer and the Beacon Journal the next day. It wasn't like it would be now where it would be endless coverage on Twitter, clickbait headline after clickbait headline. Maybe Bernie releases a statement, maybe he doesn't, maybe the team does, maybe they don't. You have fans on there sending death threats to the Browns Twitter account and all these things. Like none of that was there. It was just but I can tell you it was huge news here, and it's what everybody was talking about. Right. That's for sure.
I'm sure assholes though did send death threats to the building. I'm sure. They didn't have Twitter yet. They're in their mom's basement still, but I'm sure there's some dumb messages that were sent.
Yes, they did. They just actually had to go buy a stamp to send them. They couldn't just send it from Twitter.
Right. What a time! And I love this when you're out of town or other cities or other teams, fans or other. Like you try to say, well, what if this I don't think there's a comparison. I mean, obviously there is. Somebody will tweet me and say it, but just a comparison of who Bernie was, where he was from, like being a Northeast Ohioan, getting in the draft early, having the early success. But that was the end. And I hate to say this, but that was the end of the Browns, and that leads us to where we are today. Yeah. And it's something Bernie texted me about when I was doing my show a week ago. Right. There's no culture with the Cleveland Browns, man. And I'm saying this, not blaming anyone. This isn't me attacking anyone. The culture of what the Cleveland Browns were about died 25 years ago. The beginning of the death, I should say, happened that day that they told Bernie to walk out because not far after that, you found out the team was leaving. Belichick ended up getting fired. Once they left, he went to Baltimore. And I've said this is not the first time I'm saying it, not the last time I'm saying it. Cleveland Browns are the Baltimore Ravens. I don't know the team that we watch in Berea every week. That's just, and that's not me saying that. I get that more from like my uncles that are diehard Browns fans. You know what I mean? Like, they're like, I can't cheer the way I used to cheer for that team. Like, I see the helmets and all that other stuff, but that's not the Cleveland Browns I grew up with. And I feel like Bernie getting cut was the beginning of the end of what we knew as the Cleveland Browns.
I think it's really cool. I think it's really honest. I think it's really some other word that I can't find right now that you say that you still turn into a 6-year-old kid when your phone beeps Bernie Kosar, right? I think that's really cool.
Absolutely, yeah.
And I can tell you that those winning teams in the late 80s, I mean, those are some of my first football memories, the first games I'd watched outside of, down at the youth field. At the time, I probably hadn't even been to a high school football game, right, for some of them. And then fast forward all these years later, some of my favorite memories of working for the Browns are us running into Jimmy Donovan on road trips and Jimmy looking like someone stole his dog and like, what's wrong? Well, we don't know where Bernie is. We go on the air in 2.5 hours and we don't know where Bernie is.
What do you mean? What do you mean? What do you mean you know where Bernie is? And they truly are some of the best moments of our lives.
Bernie coming in to the preseason games, strutting through the press box, and everybody knows him, and everybody stops, and he's got this slick blazer and matching shirt underneath it, and then below that he's wearing black jeans and Nike Air Flights from 1991.
No, they're like the Converse that Larry Bird wore, like when they did the first Larry Bird Magic Johnson commercial. That's what they were.
Like with the big tongue. I can picture like the big tongue hanging over the black jeans.
Yes. Yes. He didn't even try to cover up that he had them on. It was great. I got to say this, and I mean this with my whole heart, and I hope that we can still do this for people. I know we come off as the old fuddy-duddies this whole podcast, but, man, when you mention that, in youth you have this naive coat around you in life. Don't take the early moments for granted. I know I mess with a lot of people. I mock people, and I fuck with people, but, man – and I'm 40, and I'm still, I'm a man. I'm 40. But there is a lot of cool, like when you mentioned that, like, dude, that's like part of my youth, right? Like that was a big part of my life is when we were doing, I was in my mid-20s, like, and we got Jimmy Donovan, who I've watched my whole life do the news and be the sports guy, and I'm working with him all of a sudden. Number one, that was a pinch yourself moment. But number two, to see him as a normal person, seeing him freak out because Bernie Kosar was nowhere to be found. Like, take advantage of the moments that you have. Enjoy the moments that you have because they're fleeting. And, I mean, I'm still living it up and I'm still having pinch you moments. But I'll never get back being in Chicago and nobody knowing where Bernie's at or Bernie telling me about a party that Brian Urlacher's after the game that I should go to. And I'm like, Bern, I'm with the team, dude. I can't just go to the party after the game. I can't hang out like that. I can't go to Urlacher's party. Sorry, dude. I'd love to, but I can't.
If I tell one more story, I'm going to laugh so hard I won't be able to talk for the rest of the way. So, listen, we appreciate you guys sticking with us as we did this mostly non-sports old man podcast. It's November 8th, and I don't know anything. And January 8th at earliest is when the Browns are going to hire a coach. Because even if they know who they want, they're probably going to have to go through the formal process. And that doesn't include the Rooney Rule. That includes interviewing coaches on the wild card weekend and all of that. So even if they do like somebody that's available now, a retired coach or a college coach, it's not going to be that simple. And there's no guarantee that they'll get their first pick. But I want to give some insight. This is mostly my opinion, but this is what I think. So I know this is really the only thing that matters with the Browns. I've found that as I've struggled to find things to write this week as we come on and we just do a podcast where we don't talk about football in the heart of football season. But I want to say this. To me, it's not news that Dorsey would lead the coaching search, why it had to be delivered the way it did or, whatever. Look, the Browns, the Haslams, they had to recruit John Dorsey. And part of getting him when they did and giving him the chance was to turn the keys over to him for football decisions. And so as Andre has stated and you guys have stated through your tweets and through your feedback and through, hashtag Asking Jackson to me, there should be angst with the Haslams being involved. And the Haslams should be involved to a point in this coaching search because they are the owners of the team, and they are picking the guy that's going to represent them, speak for them, be seen every day, on all these platforms that we've talked about and still on the 6 and 11 o'clock news like it was 25 years ago today. But John Dorsey's going to be the guy. You're going to live and die with John Dorsey. He's married to Baker Mayfield. He's married to the next coach, and if the next coach doesn't work, they're all getting fired. So that's not going to be good. But that being said, here's how I see this thing, guys. I see Josh McDaniels as the absolute clear-cut top candidate. There's smoke, not fire, that he's interested. There's smoke, not fire, that the Browns will be interested in him. After what he pulled last year, I don't know that they will be. I can't say one way or the other. I know the Matt Campbell stuff to be real on some level. Now, whether that just results in a conversation that gets Matt a raise, whether Matt really wants the Ohio State job instead, or maybe the Browns flirt with Matt and then don't love him, or maybe he gets cold feet at the last minute, I don't know. But he's going to be involved. And then as far as like Bruce Arians and John Harbaugh, and I'm talking about Harbaugh more here than Arians, if he becomes available on December 31st, absolutely the Browns are interested. Now, who would he hire from an offensive standpoint? Does he want to get right back in? Do the Browns think that deep down inside they need to immediately upgrade in the experience and professionalism level of the whole organization rather than going out and taking a chance or specifically hiring an offensive coach, an Eric Bieniemy, a Lincoln Riley, a Matt Campbell, a John DeFilippo? I don't know. But those are the three names, guys. As I said before, when a name is tossed out as a candidate, until much further notice, the answer is yes, that he is, because they have time, they have resources, and this thing is going to be wide-ranging. But the names McDaniels, Harbaugh, and Campbell, to me, stand out, and we'll see what happens. And thanks for listening to A to Z.
I don't care about any of those names right now. Just don't. Not no. And I don't mean that like being a hardcore guy. I'm not because it goes back to what I really, they have to find a culture. And to me, it was surprising that, I mean, if this organization was normal, you're right. The news that Dorsey was going to make the call on a coach, it wouldn't be a story.
Sure.
But because of what the 6 years of the Haslam family has been, it is a story. Because for whatever reason they want, and God bless them. I'm not against anybody for this. I don't ever want people to think that. Hey man, if I put $1 billion into something, I'd probably be hands-on too. Like, you know, I can admit that. I'd probably be hands-on too. How hands-on I would be, I would hope that my ego would be small enough that I would know what I didn't know. Does that make sense? You know what I mean? That I would trust that I didn't know it all, and I would get out of the way when Andre needed to get out of the way. But that's not always the case. And they haven't proven yet that they know how to get out of their own way. So I disagree with you. It is news. Are you right? That absolutely. John Dorsey wouldn't have took the job without that being given. I would hope. It seems like it was a wink and wink deal of, hey, give us a year of Hugh. We're paying a lot of coaches already. The least we can do is give this guy another half season, whatever the agreement was. I don't know what it was. I'm guessing. I don't know. But it seems from the actions that have taken place since John Dorsey came here last December, it just seems like that's part of the deal. So, yes, he should get to get his own coach. He's got his own quarterback. But to me, it wouldn't have been a story. It wouldn't have became a story if it wasn't a story. And even if you look at how the Haslams didn't answer, how Jimmy Haslam didn't want to answer during the press conference a couple of weeks ago, he got kind of out about it. And it's like, why be out of it? And I don't know.
Let me cut you off real quick there.
A good way of doing it.
Let me cut you off real quick there. You're right. He did, and he understands as well as anybody what his track record is. And I'm not defending him here, but he was real clear, and I'm with him on this. That day was the talk about getting it right and where the Browns were and where they needed to go. He was not going to dive into the coaching search before Halloween, right? When it's going to
and they shouldn't. But
right.
but this is, and it makes sense. But this is what you build up. God damn it! I hate this because these are all the reasons why I say don't fire your coach before a certain date. And you know that. Like, you know, when we have these conversations, I'm never sitting there saying a guy's a great coach or not. It just opens up so many more cans of worms that you don't need to deal with. And they don't know how to deal with them well. And then what happens a week and a half later? You have to put a story out there that your GM can make that call. You see what I'm saying? Like, they make problems for themselves that because I've watched it and been so close to it, I can see the problems happen before they happen.
They do.
Like they are their own walking conundrum.
I would say this.
So
leak problems and perception problems and all those things, they come from just having problems. The organization has a long way to go, right?
Yeah.
I mean, here they are again in the spotlight.
Yes.
And if it wasn't for the Raiders, it would be even worse, right? Because there's 30 NFL
the
organizations.
The Raiders are at least trying to lose.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
But see, I'm not even there's a difference. The Raiders are trying to lose. It's quite, if you really delve into what's going on with the Raiders, they don't have the money. They gave all their money up front. They would rather give the money to Gruden because they're trying to sell PSLs in Las Vegas. That's what it comes down to. They're not like a mom and pop. They're a mom and pop NFL ownership. They're not an ownership like the Haslams that comes from a lot of money from somewhere else. Davis doesn't have a ton of money. His dad, Al Davis, made all of his money through the NFL. He has enough. I mean, he's a multi-millionaire, but he ain't a billionaire like everybody else. He will be a billionaire when they get to Vegas, especially if they can sell. That's what's going on there. They're not ready. Them winning games early last year was not – obviously, they ran the coach. 2 years ago, they ran Del Rio. They have Gruden there solely to sell tickets when they get to Las Vegas. So congrats to them. They're willing to take this on the way they're taking it on. They're not trying to win. Sound kind of similar, doesn't it? Isn't that kind of what we went through for the last 2 years when an organization didn't try to win? But at least in that situation, and their situation, their plan is to have John Gruden in place, have a bunch of high draft picks, be in a new place, and blow up when they get to Vegas and be great. That's their plan. Will it work? I don't know. The plan here in Cleveland, still hasn't come to fruition.
Moral of the story is the only way to sell anything is working is to win, right? Until it wins. Until it wins, then it's hard. And it's harder when you've been bad for a whole long time. It really is. I mean, the Raiders were a playoff team a couple of years ago, right? Now they don't even know where they're going to play next year.
Right.
Yeah. I mean, it's bad. It's bad.
But that goes into they don't give a shit about winning. And it's sad, but it's the reality right now, unfortunately.
At Facebook.com/A to Z podcast is the link for the Rec to Connect Foundation event Saturday night at the Barley House. It's been all over Andre's Instagram and Twitter as well. Hope if you get the chance, if you're in Cleveland, to come out and join us, drink some beers, and enjoy it. Shouts, as always, to you guys and to our sponsors. We just played an hour's worth of American Fireworks Glory Days for the most part. AmericanFireworks.com is always open. That's all I got.
Speaking of the event, Josh Tomlin's lined up to be a celebrity bartender. Josh Cribbs will hopefully show up when he gets out of his meetings with the team. I didn't push him on it. He's always come every year, and he wants to give back to the community. He loves what Jen's doing and what her company's doing. So I got a text last night that Josh plans on showing up on Saturday night for whatever amount of time he has. He wants to show up because that's just the type of guy Josh is, and I appreciate it. A lot of talk about the Indians. I'll give our Indians a minute as we get out of here. Thank you guys all for listening. Thank you all for being a part of this. I know in our day and age we freak out at every story that we hear without any balance to it. I'll just say this. I talked to somebody within the Indians organization, and it wasn't putting down anything. It simply said our goal is to try to win a championship, and we got to do it through the restraints that we have one way or the other. That doesn't mean what they're doing and what you're hearing out there is any different than what they've done in the past 3 or 4 postseasons. They're looking to try to win a World Series, and they know they got to catch Boston and they got to catch the Astros. So anything they would be doing would be to try to do that. Even on the surface, when you just hear a name, it doesn't sound that way. Just remember, they're trying to win a World Series while they still have most of the guys that are on the roster, especially Lindor and Ramirez. Don't freak out. I guess what I would say is freak out when they make a move and it doesn't work. Until then, don't be those assholes that go on Twitter and want to call people cheap and everything else in this world without having any idea what's really going on. That enough on that?
If you add standard NFL meeting time to Josh Cribbs' standard time, he'll be at the Barley House Tuesday about 10 a.m. The rest of us will be there at 6 o'clock Saturday night. We'll see you then. Thanks for listening.